Yes. I don't have my sunglasses yet for Abby Lee Miller, but I'm sure I will get them soon. Okay. So today I want to kind of take you guys through, even though Mr. Boker can teach this way better, I didn't want to expect him to teach all this today for me, but I kind of need to get it done so that you guys can start writing. So before we start, let's begin with the end in mind, which is let's start with our event. I think that that's probably the easiest vignette to do. So I want you guys to start thinking right now, what's my event? And what is kind of the story arc of my event memoir? I'm going to talk today about story arcs. Mr. Boker is going to hand you this tips and tricks to help you write your event memoir. And then on the back, there are great leads, ways in which you can kind of start your memoir. So today, the leads help you start your event memoir. The story arcs I'm going to talk about is essentially how you would organize your story. Don't change your story to match your story arc. Find the arc that matches your story. That makes sense. It'll make more sense in a second. So, my goal today is to figure out which story arc my event vignette is, my event episode, right? Let's go through these story arcs, identify which one will work best for your story, and then you're going to start looking at the leads on the back to help you. Now, remember, James McBride didn't just tell an episode of his life by just talking about mom was grieving, mom's husband died. He had a really unique way of using a motif to kind of show the grief mom was going through and how she functioned through it. And the whole chapter of Bicycle wasn't about a bicycle, but there was something about the way he kind of brought that bicycle in that told it was just very deep and moving and symbolic. But really, the story was just about her grieving, and she's in a hole and she digs her way out. So let's look at story arcs today. This presentation is on Google Classroom to help you, but I just want you to start thinking, what's my event? Which story arc fits my event? So you guys know story arcs. It's a series of events. It's how you tell a story. It's the rise and fall and rise again of your character. So if you were to graph story arcs, there's a variety of different ones in books and movies. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Are you the man in the hole story arc? Meaning everything's positive vibes in the beginning, everything's going well, and then bam, something happens. You got to dig your way out of the hole, and then you end up kind of back where you started. So going great, bam, digging your way back up. That's the man in the hole. That's Finding Nemo. That's Monsters, Inc., Alice in Wonderland, The Hobbit, those types of stories. So that's one. Okay. Well, that might be yours. Okay. So then we got the rags to riches. Things are not well, right? Tangled. She's up in the tower. She meets the guy. She ends up in a positive upswing. She finds out who she is. She gets her identity. So is your story more of a, I was really having a hard time, but I dug my way out, or this person was struggling and they dug their way out of it? Holes is a good example. Just the Great American Dream in general, right? So Matilda, Pride and Prejudice. So that's another kind of more popular one. Next, maybe these don't fit you so far. Not really fitting me. You got your riches to rags, right? Things are vibing, you're living your best life, and bam. And the story ends bad, right? Catcher in the Rye, Animal Farm, Love You Forever, Picture of Dorian Gray. And that's okay, because like we talked about with our vignettes, our episodes, just like in sitcoms, you can have a bad ending. It didn't really happen in the 80s and 90s. It was all good. But you can have a bad ending but learn a lesson, right? You can be done dirty in an event and end up learning something from it. All right. The double man in a whole story. This one's a little more complex. So you're starting good. Things kaputzed. You're back up at the top. Things kaputzed again. And then you're back up. So I want you to think right now, do I have two kind of conflicts? Do I have I was doing well, things were great, went down, doing well, things crapped the bed again, went down, doing well in the end? The Lion King is a really good example, right? Dad dies, things suck, he comes back up, things happen again, goes back down. The Harry Potter prisoner, right? So that's another one. That could be one. So when you heard man in a hole, you probably thought that's mine. But then you realize, well, that's not mine because I'm kind of a double man in a hole. Okay, so this could be yours. All right. I can never say this right. Mr. Boker is much smarter than I am. He can say it for me, right? Right. Yeah, of course. Yes. Akaris story arc. So this is the bad to awesome to bad. Again, that's The Fault in Our Stars. That's Jurassic Park. Gatsby, right? Things were kind of crappy for Nick Carraway. He was trying to find his identity. He goes to all these parties. He's getting turned. He's getting his life. Jay Gatsby's getting turned, getting his life, right? Jay Gatsby's story, the same. Rags to riches, but then back to rags again. So that's similar. Both characters have that in The Great Gatsby. So that could be yours as well. And then obviously the Cinderella story. Things are bad. Things get better. Things get kind of bad again, but then she's found and things get better again. And then the Oedipus story arc, positive, positive, negative, kind of positive, positive, negative again. Similar to some of the others we've been talking about, Gone with the Wind, The Sun Also Rises, Frankenstein, what a great one. Moby Dick, Gone Girl, if you've ever read that book, Hamlet, The Godfather. And that's all of them. Now, I will tell you, this one is one of the most obscure ones because it's like halfway positive, really bad. And then you start to make your way up and you're kind of back in the positive, but then really, really bad again. And when you look at that line, that's kind of the time period, like the time that's allotted to each event. So when you look at this one, it looks like there's a lot of time going down and being down and staying down and then coming back up for a bit, but then going right back down again. So this one is one of the more challenging ones. Sometimes the Cinderella story can be more challenging as well. But I want you to think, what does my story look like in terms of an arc when I'm thinking about an event in my life? Because today what I want you to do is you're going to decide which story arc you want to use. And you'll do that. If you need extra assistance, you'll just go to Google Classroom. My slide presentation is on Google Classroom. You will look at those slides again, determine what arc, because I'm going to ask you which arc you use. And you're going to be able to tell me. I'm going to ask you which lead you're going to use. And you're going to be able to tell me. Story arc slideshows right here. If you're having trouble, there's also the example memoir I talked about, but I also challenge you to just look at my research memoir because I think it's a good example of how someone can interweave dialogue and things like that as well into something. But that's what you're doing today. Your goal today, if you haven't started your introduction yet, is to get that introduction done and then start plowing through that event. Figure out which lead you want to do. I could read all these to you, but you can read them yourself and then figure out which story arc you're going to have. Mr. Boker is amazing. He can give you lots of ideas. I'm not worried about you guys at all. You'll be just fine. Next hour, Mr. Murrow's subbing for my other senior English class. So let's pray for them silently now. Okay. But you're in good hands with Mr. Boker. So it'll be great. Thank you so much, Mr. Boker, for subbing today. I really appreciate it. And then I can help you guys more tomorrow. Happy Dance Mom Day, or JFL Dad, represent. Have a great day.